Welcome to episode 128 of Mastering Local Marketing. My name is Matt Hansen. Jim is on vacation, so I have my son Ryan Hansen with me today. Ryan, how are you?
Good. How are we doing?
Good. So we put you through the first episode.
Yes.
We've got episode number 2 today for our recording purposes. But we are talking about your smartest sales strategy, which is positioning your small business correctly. Clear positioning makes a clear impression on your mind. In this episode, we break down 5 ways to position your brand so customers quickly understand who you serve, what makes you different, and why they should choose you. If your message feels too generic, this conversation will help you sharpen it, stand out, and drive stronger small business growth. So positioning is a kind of an interesting thing for me, right? So I'm talking to Ryan here. When I say the words Nike, what does that say to you?
I see the swoosh.
The swoosh, okay. But what does the swoosh stand for?
High quality sportswear / celebrity sports players, that sort of thing. That's what I think of.
What about Apple?
I immediately think of like computers, phones.
Good or bad?
Good. It's widely regarded as the best. So
okay. So what about let's say Southwest Airlines?
I think of their new luggage policy.
Okay. So they've changed their positioning a little bit recently,
they have, yeah.
right?
They're trying to change everything.
So instead of the free-for-all, run-to-your-seat kind of thing, which we all joke about, now they're charging for bags and all kinds of things. But they've changed their positioning, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to go back. I want to tell a little bit of a story. And you were probably 1 or 2 years old when this story happened,
okay.
Right? So I'm going way, way back, considering that you're 20 now. So I had a competitor back in the day, and this was back when I worked in the magazine space. And we had one magazine, and we had 140,000 subscribers that would get our magazine. And they had 3 different types of magazines that would get 110,000 subscribers, right? Mm-hmm. So we beat them by 30,000 subscribers, but they were out there in the marketplace, and they were marketing. They positioned themselves as a 3-for-1. So essentially what they were doing is they were going out there and selling to the companies that were advertising in both publications and saying, we will give you all 3 publications for one price, right? And everybody was jumping on board with this because in their mind what they were getting was 2 issues, 2 different magazines for free, and then they were paying for one. And our sales were going south real quick. And my entire sales team was coming to me, and they're like, so we got to do something. They're killing us on this. Like, people are bailing because they're getting 3-for-1, and we're just selling our normal magazine. And I said, okay, well, let me look at this a little bit. I said, we have 140,000 circulation, which is the number of readers that are, reading the magazine every single month. They have 110. I said, so there's 30,000 people that they don't want to talk to. And they said, it doesn't matter. They're just looking at it from a positioning standpoint of a 3-for-1. So I said, okay, we got to figure this out. So I started looking at the differences between our companies. And not to get in the weeds of this, but our magazine used to go to bigger companies. So companies that did more revenue, more product, more service on an annual basis, right? So these were bigger companies, not just mom and pop, like small, small companies. And we had to understand. We said, okay, well, we service 30,000 more. We deal with bigger customers that are going to buy more product because basically everyone that was advertising was trying to sell their product. And so we went out there and we did this research project, and we went out, we started asking questions. We used one of the associations in the industry to facilitate this survey. We gave our competitor who was beating us the survey results as well. It was part of the program that we were doing. And then we multiplied all of this data together to really come up with the fact that we were selling, or that our customers, those 30,000 that you were missing, are actually buying billions and billions of dollars of product every single year. So what we did is we flipped the script on it, right? So we used to have, oh, well, we were the largest in the industry. And then this other company came in and started selling 3-for-1, and everyone's like, well, I'm getting a deal. I'm going to go with them. So we came back and we said, well, what is your goal here? Is your goal to sell more product, or is your goal to get a discount on your advertising? And they said, well, obviously it's to sell more product. So then we gave them this number, and I remember I forget the exact number, what it was, but it was just an enormous amount of product that they were leaving on the table by not advertising to our audience versus these smaller companies. So we rolled this entire campaign out. What part of this billions and billions of dollars do you want to leave on the table because you're taking advantage of a 3-for-1 instead of being in the right place to sell more product? And we just repositioned the way that we were selling, right? So instead of just being, hey, we're the largest, we put it into terms that they could understand, and the fact that you sell product, we have a large audience, our audience buys more than the typical person in this other audience, and therefore you're missing out on billions and billions of dollars in product opportunity. So we just flipped the script, right? So we repositioned a little bit, and it really worked. And we took off again, right? We started selling like crazy, and all the advertisers are like, I can't believe we fell for that, and all this other stuff. So long story short, it's kind of a lead into what we're talking about today. So there are 5 ways that we want to talk about positioning today, and one of them is called value-based. And when I say value, what does that insinuate in your mind?
High quality, sort of, I don't know, somebody that I'd trust over somebody else.
Okay. Well, that's good, because a lot of people, when you say value-based, they think dollar, right? They're just like, oh, as cheap as possible. Mm-hmm. And what we're not trying to do is we're not trying to position you as cheap as possible. You don't want to be the quote-unquote Walmart of your town, right? Because then everyone expects cheaper prices are typically, they run in line with worse products, right? And I'm not saying Walmart is a bad place. I'm saying Walmart can buy in such bulk that they can get the prices down. Mm-hmm. But if I said, if I was a marketing agency coming to a small business and I said, hey, I can give you a new website for $20, what do you think? How do you think that website's going to, what do you think it's going to look like?
Might not function in some
might
spots.
It's probably like a one-pager, right?
Yeah.
A one-page website. Yeah. We'll put some details up there, and we'll say $20 website that's nothing, right?
Yeah.
But what if I said I'm going to charge you $20,000 for a website?
I'd expect a lot more.
I'd expect a lot more. But what if I told you that $20,000 website we've implemented for other people in your space, and as soon as we launched it, they were pulling in well over $100,000 a month?
Well, then that's a deal breaker.
That's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you might as well, I'm in, right? Yeah. So that's what I mean by value-based, is that you've got to assign the value in a way that shows that you are giving such a good offer for the price, and it doesn't have to be a discounted price. I said $20,000, but if I'm, I do this in class a lot with my students where I'll say, give me $1. They look at me funny, and I go, give me $1, I'll give you $5 back. And they're just like, okay. And I go, how many times are you going to do that? And they're like, again? And I go, wouldn't you do that forever? I said, all right, give me $1, I'll give you $1.05 back. And they're like, okay. And I go, how many times would you do that? And they're like, I guess I'd keep doing it. Exactly. So what we're looking for is value in what we're doing. So whether it's an agency that's selling you a website, or you're selling some kind of product, or you're a restaurant, right? So if I'm paying you $25 for my meal, and I get my meal back, and it's kind of like our meal was the other night where there was nothing that came back, right? I won't call anybody out, but would you buy again? No, right? So the idea is, if I'm putting money out there, am I getting a real value back? Is it the most delicious thing that I've ever eaten, even if it's small quantity? Or is it large quantity, but it's okay, but it fills me up? I mean, there's a variety of different ways you can look at it. The second one I want to talk about is quality-based, right? So we talked a little bit about this on the last podcast, but, looking at testimonials, reviews, before and afters, right? So that is a positioning strategy that shows that you are legit, right? So there's nothing worse than going out there and trying to look up a company, or you're on a company's website and there's no reviews, there's nothing for you to look at,
No
right?
hours even.
No hours, right?
That's the worst.
Right? So you have nothing there. But the funny part about this is why Google business profiles work so well. So if you search for something and you end up on the Google business profiles, their rankings pop up based on reviews, right? So you start reading the reviews. Our neighbor, we were talking when we were doing the floors a couple weeks ago, he was talking to me about, I need to market somewhere a little bit closer. And I was kind of laughing because the first thing I did is I pulled up his reviews on the Google business profile, and he needs more reviews. Did he ask us for reviews?
I don't know.
No, he didn't. Right? But that's what I mean. Like, understanding the quality-based positioning, if you focus on those reviews, it's going to elevate your brand, and more people are going to want to buy from you, right? So it's a conversation we'll have with him later, but I do want to tell him that's one of the ways that he can make it better. The third is benefits, right? So outcomes, things that are going to happen, right? So you go to the gym at school, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Why do you go to the gym?
To be healthier and to build muscle.
Okay. So you don't go to the gym for socialization or anything like that.
No, sometimes.
Okay.
I'll go to the because our gym at school has a bunch of miscellaneous sports courts and whatnot that I'll go and I'll play at with friends. So like I'll go socially for that reason. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've actually worked with a few different gyms through the years.
Okay.
And you get the ones that are socialization. One recently that I worked with, it was like their videos were grinding, and it's just like it looked like I'm going to be sore for a month afterwards after I go there. And some people just don't want that, right? But there are other people that do. So depending upon, looking at it from a gym point of view, is it to get in shape? Is it just to get some activity? Is it socialization, right? Am I trying to build confidence? Am I trying to feel better, get more energy, right? So as you get older, I'm turning 50 this year, right? And, it's like getting more energy and realizing that you've got to get active. So that's one benefit. Let's talk about lawn care, right? So people that go around and they mow lawns. So Dan, our neighbor, owns a lawn care business, and they pull up with their trailer and they mow his yard. Why would you do that? Convenience, right?
Yeah.
So I've said it for years that I hate mowing the yard, and I wish we would get something for that. But you buy it for convenience. You buy time. Maybe they do a better job than you do. Right? I'm going to be honest. I don't have a green thumb. Like, our yard is not the greatest. It is what it is. But, maybe it's the pride of home ownership. So we used to have a neighbor that, they were out in their yard every single evening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Great people, but they were meticulous about their yard. And would they ever hire somebody to take care of their yard?
No, they wouldn't trust them.
Of course,
Yeah.
right? But if somebody came to me back then and said, hey, we can have your yard look like theirs and it's this price, I'd be like, okay, they spend 2-3 hours a night on their yard, and I can just do whatever I want to do and it'll look like that. Fine.
Yeah.
That's the pride of home ownership, right? So that's another way to position is benefits and outcomes. The fourth way is problem solution, right? So you have or your customer has a problem and you are the solution. So this could be something like a bookkeeper, right? So we're all talking to small businesses here. And, I don't know how well your books are when it comes to keeping track of receipts and purchases and all the kinds of things. But if you're like most people, it's a little out of order and needs to get into better shape. So wouldn't it be nice if you could make one phone call or push one button and know exactly where you are at any given moment, right? So that's where something like QuickBooks or a CPA or somebody like that can come in and really just say, we'll have you where you need to be. So if somebody asks you about revenues or your profits for the year or the last week, you have that at your fingertips. So wouldn't you talk about problem solution, right? So another way to look at that is from an agency perspective. A lot of people don't want to bother with a marketing agency. And what I always tell them is, that's fine. Don't get an agency. Go out there and do it yourself, but learn before you do it, right? So you've got that learning curve that you have, and you realize that that learning curve is going to take time away from other things. It's going to cost you either time or it's going to cost you money, because if you don't take the time to learn, you're going to make some mistakes. And with an agency, if they have good reviews, right, going back to reviews, you will save time and money, and they will get results faster. So again, it's problems that you're having, solutions that can be provided. So look at your customer base and go, what are the problems that they're dealing with, right? So if it's, I always say, there was this ad way back when, it's for a florist. And it was a picture of 1 rose in a vase. It was a picture of 6 roses in a vase. And it was a picture of like 24 roses in a vase. And on the bottom of it said, exactly how mad is she? And I thought that was funny because, again, problem, solution, right? So that's how they're selling it. The fifth and final one that we want to talk about today is competitor-based, right? So when we look at your competitors, what are they doing? Are they really open to their customers, or are they kind of cold and corporate? Because if you're personal, if you're local, if you're trying to be that way, if you're trying to sell in a small area, you need to be out there, right? So you see a lot of this where companies will start to come into an area, and they're a corporate company, and they're buying up smaller service businesses, and then they become corporate. And you kind of lose a little bit of that, hometown feel to them, right? You start seeing their ads all over, the major TV stations, and their ads are everywhere. And that's fine. I mean, that's how they position themselves, because they have the ability to do that. But if you're someone that is small, that is competing with them, flip it. You don't want to be like that. You want to be, well, my name is Matt, and I provide this service, and I'm here. I'm the one answering the phone calls. It's true service, right? Like Adriana was talking today that Jim is out, and she's taking all of the phone calls for the radio station. So, if you're calling into the radio station, you're getting the real people that are working there. It's not a call center or anything like that, right?
And I will say, I don't know if it's like for the radio station or if it's for my phone personally.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I should be like, WJOB, Adriana Alvarez here, and then it's like, so we're here calling about and then it's like something else that has nothing to do with the radio. And I'm like, okay.
Just put them all on air.
Yeah. Everybody's on air. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. So again, what are your competitors doing? Are they slow to respond? That's another one, right? So quickness, basically we're an instant gratification kind of society right now with phones and everything else that we have. The internet has caused that, and AI is actually making it speed up. But, can you respond faster than the other person? And we've talked about this in the past with, service businesses like a plumber. If you're calling a plumber, you've got a problem right now. So if they're picking up the phone, or they have the ability to pick up the phone quick and respond quick, you don't want to hear, yeah, we can be out there in 7 days. You want to hear, we'll be out there in an hour to get to you, right? So speed, quickness, understand what your competitors are doing. And then I think with all of these, we have to understand that when you're positioning your company, you may say, well, that's obvious, right? Anyone can say that. But the funny part about it is, with positioning, the first person to say it is usually the one that owns it, right? So they put it in your mind. So I asked you when we started this about Nike, right?
Yeah.
So Nike, you had Nike, Adidas, and Converse back in the day when the craziness started to happen about getting athletes, right? So if you ever watched the movie about Nike and Michael Jordan and all of that, right? So they were all trying to get all of these different athletes. But for Nike, what happened? Nike really took off, especially in basketball with Jordan. And Jordan was the name, right? Mm-hmm. So, they switched that positioning. So everybody was kind of jumping on board with Adidas and Converse. And Nike went a different route. They started to reposition Nike, and they piggybacked off the Air Jordan name and built a shoe for an athlete instead of just putting an athlete in a shoe, right? So they repositioned and looked at things a little bit differently. Apple It's not the cheapest company out there, right?
Not at all.
No. It's when Steve Jobs took this and he was running with it, it was about the look. It was about, how can we separate ourselves, right? Like you can go, the way we look at it is there's PCs and then there's Macs, right? Technically a Mac is a PC, but they've branded it, they've positioned it in the right way. Again, with Southwest, when you think discount air, many times you think Southwest first, right? There are other names out there, but you'll also hear those reviews that are out there about other discount airlines and, that you're flying on lawn chairs and everything else. But
Yeah.
but that's what we're saying is the first person to get out there and start to position themselves in a space typically owns it. All right? So I'm going to put a wrap-up checklist in our show notes, but here are some of the questions that you could actually ask, right? So who is the exact customer you want to attract? Are you trying to attract somebody that's looking for discounts? Are you trying to attract somebody that's looking for quality? Are you trying to attract somebody local? Are you trying to attract people that are nationally? What do they care about most? Are they price-driven or are they quality-driven? Are they trying to achieve a result? Are they dealing with a specific pain point? You've heard us talk about pain points many times. People buy things to solve and get rid of their pain points, the things that they're struggling with. And there's about 4 or 5 other ones that I'm going to add in the show notes just so you go and you'll have them available. But this was episode 128. I want to thank Ryan for jumping on with me. I know it's a spring break, but I said you got to hang out with Dad, so come on and hang out. Adriana, I want to thank you again for hosting or running our podcast. And for those of you out there, make sure you subscribe on Apple and Spotify, and we will see you next week.